Hi everyone, this is a real quick video explaining what could be going wrong with your steering lock or ignition barrel. So these are common to fail in kind of Mark 6 era Golfs, Siroccos, GTIs, Passats, Tiguans, that kind of car. So basically I made a $400 mistake because I got this thing out of the box, cranked it, and then basically internal safety feature in it where it mechanically bricks itself. This is done as a safety feature in the car, so if someone's messing around with your ignition, they're in there with a screwdriver, basically it can brick itself, meaning they can't steer your car, and ideally that means your car is safe. So if you're doing any of this, remember that you could be hindering your car's ultimate safety and the way it was designed. So the ideal action of this barrel, so this is the ignition barrel. On the side here we have the locking mechanism, that's where the key goes into. This mechanism is keyed to the mechanical key. There's also the ultrasonic, I think it's ultrasonic, high frequency pairing between the key and the mechanism. So key thing, ironically the key thing, is just don't mess around with this. Super expensive, 5-week wait time. On this side there's the ignition switch, just a generic switch. That's where that little square keyway there is what interfaces with that. So the ideal action you're after here is that the ignition is off. Key lock here, which locks with the steering column, is engaged. As you clock this, as you would the key, just clock forward, retracts. You can have your steering. When you turn off the ignition, bring it back, keyway engages. So basically, if you clock this incorrectly, if you mess around with it before you install it to the car, there's an extra safety pin here. This safety pin, small guy here, it is spring loaded, and basically once it engages there's no way of getting it out. The only way to get it out and get your ignition barrel working again is by drilling out this pressed part behind it, pulling it out, and then pulling out this additional deadlock pin. So when this engages, this deadlock pin engages into the central steering lock. This anti-theft pin also slides along inside this housing and means you can't take out the locking mechanism. The only way to get the locking mechanism out once you do this is to cut this outer housing off, and then you free it that way. So I learned that the hard way with the other one, but you can get it functioning again if you drill out that other safety pin and remove this additional pin. So this is the internal crank. This is what actuates this lock. This lock has 2 parts in it. Not 100% sure why. Heaps of springs, small circlips, other locking stuff. Be real careful of that when you're taking it apart. So, as mentioned before, this tiny deadlock pin engages with this here. And basically, when that's engaged, this internal lock will stay down, and then it'll just rattle around. You won't be able to cycle the key, and it's pretty obvious because you'll make no progress very quickly. I messed around with this for a few hours before I kind of figured it was something else internal happening. So, as I said before, if you want to get this working again, drill out the safety pin, remove this additional pin, which stops this getting out, and then you can reassemble it and you can get it working again. Sometimes you do just have to cut this open, cut your losses, get a new one of these. That is the proper way to do it. That's the proper way they do it at the dealer. And in terms of reinstalling this, I think the process you're meant to do, don't hold me to this, you really need the VW dealer manual, which is what I don't have. It's probably the reason why you're watching this video as well. I think you have to install this into the car, install the switch, and the final stage is installing that locking mechanism. Once that's like that, you're all okay. Basically, the main thing to remember, if you buy a new one of these, don't mess around with it. If you mess around with it, you'll clock it the wrong way. The crank will pull the pin down, pin will engage down, safety pin locked in, you've bricked it. The only way to get it out, drill out this guy, pull him out, and then hope that you can wiggle out to your steering lock and that this guy here hasn't engaged too much. In addition to that, there are these weird kind of float components. This guy here is actually has a direction. You can see there's a small key there, and you have to make sure that this is clocked correctly in this. And additionally, when you put this back on, you have to make sure that this is clocked correctly to this. So if you're taking it apart, be real careful. I use these paint pen reference marks, which I'd say is essential. Watch out for all these small springs. And honestly, if this happens, it's prepare to buy a new one. And if I were doing this again, I'd honestly just take it straight to the dealer. I think it was only, 1 hour's work. Realistically, they're probably going to charge you more. But it's really not a difficult job, but you really have to know the correct process. So it's a DIY, but it's a DIY at the risk. If you need it done quickly, just take it to the dealer. If you know what you want, it should be pretty quickly achieved. Another thing is that there's these shear bolts on the top there. You have to buy those back from the dealer if you want to retain your car's ultimate security. Apart from that, good luck. I hope you don't have to mess around with it as much as I did, and hope this video helped. Thanks for watching.